Reading today in Matthew 26, 6, starting off there. Meanwhile, Jesus was in Bethany at the home of Simon, a man who had previously had leprosy. While he was eating, a woman came in with a beautiful alabaster jar of expensive perfume and poured it over his head. The disciples were indignant when they saw this. What a waste, they said. It could have been sold for a high price and the money given to the poor. But Jesus, aware of this, replied, Why criticize this woman for doing such a good thing to me? You will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. She has poured this perfume on me to prepare my body for burial. I tell you the truth. Wherever the good news is preached throughout the world, this woman's deed will be remembered and discussed. Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12 disciples, went to the leading priest and asked, How much will you pay me to betray Jesus to you? And they gave him 30 pieces of silver. From that time on, Judas began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus. On the first day of the festival of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, Where do you want us to prepare the Passover meal for you? As you go into the city, he told them, you will see a certain man. Tell him the teacher says, My time has come, and I will eat the Passover meal with my disciples at your house. So the disciples did as Jesus told them and prepared the Passover meal there. When it was evening, Jesus sat down at the table with the 12 disciples. While they were eating, he said, I tell you the truth, one of you will betray me. Greatly distressed, each one asked in turn, Am I the one, Lord? Am I the one, Lord? He replied, One of you who has just eaten from this bowl with me will betray me. For the Son of Man must die, and the Scriptures declared long ago, but how terrible it will be for the one who betray him. It will be far better for man. It would be far better for the man if he had never been born. Judas, the one who was betrayed him, asked, Rabbi, am I the one? And Jesus told him, You have said it. As they were eating, Jesus took some bread and blessed it. Then he broke it out in pieces and gave it to the disciples, saying, Take this, eat it, for this is my body. And he took the cup of wine and gave thanks to God for it. He gave it to them and said, Each of you drink from it, for this is my blood, which confirms the covenant between God and his people. It is poured out as a sacrifice to forgive the sins of many. Mark, uh, mark my words. I will not drink wine again until the day I drink new with you in their kingdom. See there, Jesus drank. A lot of people think drinking is a sin. Drinking is not a sin. Too much drinking is a sin. Jesus is saying here, I will not drink wine again until I meet you in heaven. So he's telling us he used to drink wine. He used to drink, but he didn't drink till he got so drunk he didn't remember the next day. So drinking is not a sin. Then they sang a hymn and went out to the Mount of Olives. On the way, Jesus told them, Tonight all of you will desert me, for the scriptures say, God will strike the shepherd and the sheep of my flock will be scattered. But after I have been raised from the dead, I will go ahead of you to Galilee and meet you there. Peter declared, Even if everyone else deserts you, I will never desert you. Hello, everybody. I'm reading right now, so I'm not trying to ignore y'all, I'm just reading. Jesus replied, I tell you the truth, Peter. This very night before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times that you even know me. No, Peter insisted. Even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you. All the other disciples vowed the same. Then Jesus went with them to the olive grove called Gethsemane. And he said, Sit here a while, I'll go over there to pray. He took Peter and Zebedee, 2 sons, James and John, and he became anguished and distressed. He told them, My soul is crushed with grief to this point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. He went on a little further and bowed with his face to the ground, praying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me. Yes, I want your will to be done, not mine." Then he returned to the disciples and found them asleep. He said to Peter, "Couldn't you watch with me even 1 hour? Keep watch and pray so that you will not give to the temptation. For the spirit is willing, but the body is weak." Then Jesus left them a second time and prayed, "My Father, if this cup cannot be taken away unless I drink it, your will be done." He returned to them again, he found them sleeping, for they couldn't keep their eyes open. So he went to pray a third time, saying the same thing again. Then he came to the disciples and said, "Go ahead and sleep. Have your rest. But look, the time has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Up, let's go be going. Look, my betrayer is here." And even as Jesus and this Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men armed with swords and clubs, they had been sent by the leading priests and the elders of the people. The traitor Judas had given them a prearranged signal. "You will know which one of the to arrest when I greet him with a kiss." So Judas came straight to Jesus. "Greetings, Rabbi," he exclaimed, and gave him a kiss. Jesus said, "My friend, go ahead and do what you have come for." Then the others grabbed Jesus and arrested him. But one of the men with Jesus pulled out his sword and struck the high priest's slave, slashing off his ear. "Put away your sword," Jesus told him. "Those who use the sword will die by the sword. Don't you realize that I could have my Father for thousands of angels to protect us, and he would send them instantly? But if I did, how would the scriptures be fulfilled that describe what must have happened now?" Then Jesus said to the crowd, "Am I a dangerous revolutionary that you come with swords and clubs to arrest me? Why didn't you arrest me in the temple? I was there teaching every day. But this is all happening to fulfill the words of the prophets as recorded in the scriptures." At this point, all the disciples deserted him and fled. Then the people who had arrested Jesus led him to the home of Caiaphas, the high priest, where the teachers of religious law and the elders had gathered. Meanwhile, Peter followed him at a distance and came to the high priest's courtyard. He went in and sat with the guards and waited to see how it would all end. Inside, the leading priests and the entire high council were trying to find witnesses. I got to turn the page. Who would lie about Jesus, so they could put him to death. But even though they found many who agreed with the great false witness, they could not use anyone's testimony. Finally, 2 men came forward who declared, "This man said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and rebuild it in 3 days." Then the high priest stood up and said to Jesus, "Well, aren't you going to answer these charges? What do you have to say for yourself?" But Jesus remained silent. Then the high priest said to him, "I demand in the name of the living God, tell us if you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Jesus replied, "You have said it. And in the future you will see the Son of Man seated in place of power at God's right hand and coming on the clouds of heaven." Then the high priest tore his clothing and showed his horror and said, "You have all heard this blasphemy. What is your verdict?" "Guilty," they shouted. "He deserves to die." Then they began to spit in Jesus' face and beat him with their fists. And some slapped him, jeering, "Prophecy, tell us, your Messiah, who hit you that time?" Meanwhile, Peter was sitting outside the courtyard. A servant girl came over and said to him, "You are one of those who followed Jesus the Galilean." But Peter denied it in front of everyone. "I don't know what you are talking about," he said. Later, out by the gate, another servant girl noticed him and said to those standing around, "This man was with Jesus of Nazareth." Again, Peter denied it. this time with an oath. I do not even know this man, he said. A little later, some of the other bystanders came over to Peter and said, "You must be one of them who can tell by your Galilean accent." Peter swore, "I curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know the man." And immediately the rooster crowed. Suddenly Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind. "Before the rooster crowed, you will deny 3 times that you even know me." And he went away weeping bitterly. Very early in the morning, the leading priests and the elders met again and laid plans for putting Jesus to death. Then they bound him, led him away, and took him to Pilate, the Roman governor. When Judas, who had betrayed him, realized that Jesus had been condemned to die, he was filled with remorse. So he took the 30 pieces of silver back to the leading priests and the elders. "I have sinned," he declared, "for I have betrayed the innocent man." "What do we care?" they retorted. "That's your problem." Then Judas threw the silver coins down in the temple and went out to hang himself. The leading priests picked up the coins. If it wouldn't be right to put this money in the temple's treasury, they said, since it was payment for murder. After some discussions, they finally decided to buy the potter's field, and they made it in a ceremony for foreigners, cemetery for foreigners. That is why the field is called the field of blood, to fulfill the prophecy of Jeremiah that said, "They took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of which he was valued by the people of Israel, and purchased the potter's field, and the Lord directed." Now Jesus was standing before Pilate, the Roman governor. "Are you the king of the Jews?" the governor asked him. Jesus replied, "You have said it." But when the leading priest and the elders made their accusations against him, Jesus remained silent. "Don't you hear all the charges they are bringing against you?" Pilate demanded. But Jesus made no remorse, no response to any of the charges, much to the governor's surprise. Now, it was the governor's custom each year during the Passover celebration to release one prisoner to the crowd, anyone they wanted. This year, there was a notorious prisoner, a man named Barnabas. As the crowd gathered before Pilate's house that morning, he was asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you, Barnabas or Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" He knew very well the religious leaders had arrested Jesus out of envy. Just then, as Pilate was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent him this message: "Leave that innocent man alone. I suffered through a terrible nightmare about him last night." Meanwhile, the leading priests and the elders pursued the crowd to ask for Barnabas to be released for Jesus to be put to death. So the governor asked again, "Which of these two do you want me to release to you?" The crowd shouted back, "Barnabas." Pilate responded, "Then what would I do with Jesus, who is called the Messiah?" They shouted back, "Crucify him." "Why?" Pilate demanded. "What crime has he committed?" But the mob roared even louder, "Crucify him." Pilate saw that he was getting anywhere, and as the riot was developing, so he sent for a bowl of water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this man's blood. The responsibility is yours." And all the people yelled back, "We will be responsible for his death, we and our children." So Pilate released Barnabas to them. He ordered Jesus flogged with a lead-tipped whip, then turned over to the Roman soldiers to be crucified. Some of the governor's soldiers took Jesus into their headquarters. That's another thing. Why, if Pilate knew that this man was innocent, why didn't he just say, "Crucify him"? And instead of beating the man and crucifying him. So why was he beaten? If Pilate thought that he was innocent, why did he say, "Have him whipped and then crucified"? Why not just say, "Have him crucified"? It don't make any sense. Some of the governor's soldiers took Jesus into their headquarters and called out the entire regiment. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. They wove thorn branches into a crown and put it on his head. And they placed a reed stick in the right hand of the scepter as a scepter. Then they knelt before him and mocking and taunted, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they spit it on him and grabbed the stick and struck him on the head with it. When they were finally tired of mocking him, they took off the robe and put his own clothes back on him again, and they led him away to be crucified. Along the way, they came across a man named Simon, who was from Cyrene, and the soldiers forced him to carry Jesus' cross. And they went out to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. The soldiers gave him with bitter gall, but when he had tasted it, he refused to drink it. After they had nailed him to the cross, the soldiers gambled for his clothes by throwing dice. Then they sat around and kept. Then they sat around and kept guard as he hung there. A sign was fastened at the cross above Jesus' head, announcing the charge against him. It read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Two revolutionaries were crucified with him, on the right and one on the left. The people passing by shouted abuse. Shaking their heads in mockery. "Look at you now," they yelled at him. "You said you were going to destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days. Well then, if you are the Son of God, save yourself and come down from the cross." Their leading priests, the teachers of religious law, and the elders also mocked Jesus. "He saved others," they scoffed, "but he can't even save himself. So he is the King of Israel," he said, "is he? Let him come down from the cross right now, and we will believe in him. He trusted God, so let God rescue him now if he wants him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" Even the revolutionaries were crucified with him, ridiculed him in the same way. Well, that one said that Jesus was innocent. And that's why Jesus said, "You'll be with me in paradise." At noon, darkness fell across the whole land until 3 o'clock. At about 3 o'clock, Jesus called out with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you abandoned me?" Some of the other bystanders misunderstood and thought he was calling for the prophet Elijah. One of them ran and filled the sponge with sour wine, holding it up for him on a reed stick so he could drink. But the rest said, "Wait, let's see whether Elijah comes to save him." Then Jesus shouted out again, and he released his spirit. At that moment, a curtain in the sanctuary of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. The earth shook, rocks split apart, and tombs opened. The bodies of many godly men and women who had died were raised from the dead. They left the cemetery after Jesus' resurrection, went into the holy city of Jerusalem, and appeared to many people. The Roman officer and the other soldier at the crucifixion were terrified by the earthquake and all that had happened. They said this man truly was the Son of God. And many women who had come from Galilee with Jesus to care for him were watching from a distance. Among them were Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of James, then John, the son of Zebedee. As evening approached, Joseph, a rich man from Armatha, who had become a follower of Jesus, went to Pilate and asked for Jesus' body. And Pilate issued an order to release it to him. Joseph took the body and wrapped it in a long sheet and clean linen cloth. He placed it in his own new tomb, which had been carved out of the rock. Then he rolled a great stone across the entrance and left. Both Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting across from the tomb and watching. The next day, on the Sabbath, the leading priests and the Pharisees went to deceive Pilate. They found him. Sir, we remember the deceiver once said, well, while he was still alive, after 3 days I will rise from the dead. So we request that you seal the tomb until the third day. This will prevent his disciples from coming and stealing his body and then telling everyone he had raised from the dead. If that happens, we'll be worse off than we were at first. Pilate replied, take guard and secure the best you can. So they sealed the tomb and posted guards to protect it. Hello, everybody. I'm just here reading, so talk to among each other until I get finished reading. I'm almost done. Early on Sunday morning, as the new day was dawning, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went out to visit the tomb. Suddenly there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, rolled aside the stone, and sat on it. His face shone like lightning, and his clothing was as white as snow. The guards shook with fear when they saw him, and they fell into a dead faint. Then the angel spoke to the woman. Don't be afraid, he said. I know you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He isn't here. He has risen from the dead, just as he had said he uh, would happen. Come, see where his body was laid. And now go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead, and he is going ahead of you to Galilee. You will see him there. Remember what I have told you. The women ran quickly from the tomb. They were all very frightened, but also filled with great joy, and they rushed to give the disciples the angel's message. As they went, Jesus met them and greeted them, and they ran to him, grasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, don't be afraid. Go tell my brothers to leave for Galilee, and they will see me there. As the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and told the leading priests what had happened. A meeting with the elders was called, and uh, the, the, they decided to give the soldiers a large bribe. They told the soldiers, you must say Jesus' disciples came at night while you were sleeping, and thus they stole the body. And the governor hears about it, will stand up for you so you won't get in trouble. So the guards accepted the bribe and said that they were told to say. The story spread widely among the Jews as they still tell it today. Then the 11 disciples left the Galilee, going to the mountains where Jesus had told them to go. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some of them doubted. Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, to teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given you, and be sure of this, I am with you always, even in the end of age. So that was Jesus' life, being crucified and died for your sins. He died and rose again, and that was the story of Jesus and Matthew. I think that was Matthew. Yeah, that's Matthew. That was in Matthew. Uh, when I come back, I'll start reading in Mark. So whether that be tomorrow or the next day or whenever I come back, we'll start reading in Mark and go from there. But let's see what people were saying. Said hi. Bye bye. So I won't talk to her either. This. Hey, baby boy. Yeah. Well, it looks like everybody left. When people find out that I'm reading the Bible, they just can't stay and listen. They always run. It's a story about Jesus Christ. Just listen. You might learn something. Instead of running, listen and learn. I know a lot of people got to run. But have a good day. God bless y'all and take care. Bye.